The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim and Fallout 4. Both big role-playing games made by Bethesda Game Studios and published by Bethesda Softworks. Both pissed off old fans, both enjoyed by me. Both the first game of their series that I played, but both not perfect in my eyes. So, to see what they did and didn't do right, I'm going to compare the two. I'm not a big reviewer, I'm not an industry veteran, I'm just a player like any other. So my opinion is meaningless, and my conclusions pointless. Let's get started. So, we started it with the tutorial, then people wanted to know my experience with the games, and now we move to the next couple hours. This I find is an interesting part, as the games do very different things, but also really similar things, but in really different ways. What am I talking about? Let's take a look. Both give you a taste of friendly towns. Both give you a big danger to face. Both introduce you to one of the big factions. And both try to introduce the story as good as they can. Let's start with defining what part I'm talking about. Here I'm looking at the couple hours that most people play the same even though they don't have to. For Skyrim this is the walk to Riverwood, Bleak Falls Barrow, Whiterun and your first dragon attack. For Fallout this is Sanctuary, Red Rocket, Concord and Sanctuary again. And immediately I have to praise Skyrim. Why immediately? Because from the moment it sets you loose, it starts doing something really smart. It starts directing you to the tutorial dungeon. It isn't really part of the tutorial, but it is the tutorial for dungeons. Bleak Falls Barrow. Who doesn't know that name? For many, it's the only dungeon they know by name. And there's a reason for it. There's also a reason it is the first dungeon almost everyone goes to. And it isn't just as simple as you might think. Yes, one of the very first main story quests and one of the first side quests you find direct you to it, but it goes past that. The moment you step into the world, what's one of the first things you see? Forest around you, a mountain in front of you, and on said mountain lies an imposing structure. It's the first interesting thing you see the moment you come out. Often before Alduin shows up for the last time. When you walk down the path, you will see it all the time. Your companion will comment on it. Even when you get to Riverwood, one of the first things you will hear is,
"A dragon! I saw a dragon!"
What? What is it now, Mother?
It was as big as the mountain and black as night. It flew right over the barrow.
From the moment go, they make you want to go to this place. And this is an important dungeon to visit for new players, as it serves as an introduction to almost all the dungeons in the game. The basic turn pillar puzzle that other dungeons sometimes use really cool. The Dragon Claw door, which aren't difficult in any way, but you need to know how to do them or you will be stuck a lot. In Fallout, unless you really go off the road, you will always run into the tutorial dungeon. It also starts a quest to really draw you in. But Skyrim doesn't need that. Yes, there's a path that leads to the barrow, but it's not the main path. And you can go other ways. It doesn't need to force you to that place. Whereas Fallout makes you walk directly past it, making it hard to ignore, Skyrim makes you want to travel there. But where I can talk for quite a bit about how each game leads you to the tutorial dungeon, there isn't a lot to say about these dungeons themselves. Both just introduce you to how these dungeons work. I know that Fallout doesn't really have dungeons, but they work the same, so picking one name is just easier. Skyrim shows a lever that kills you, meaning something has to be done, ta-da, turning pillar tutorial. And gives a not too subtle hint on how to open Dragonclaw doors. Not a hard puzzle, but hard enough that it doesn't break immersion and makes you feel clever the first time. Fallout uses this place as a tutorial for hacking and lockpicking if you didn't explore before. Though if you hack first you can still miss the lockpick. It is the first introduction to humans and enemies with guns. This immediate introduction to human kind of kills the idea Fallout seems to be going for in the tutorial, but we'll return to that later. But overall there isn't a ton to say about the dungeon themselves. How they end is pretty important though. Skyrim ends with finding a massive cavern, leading up to a stone wall with strange words on it, giving the player the idea that this is something special. When you walk towards it, it will start talking to you, in words you don't understand. But you can recognize if you stayed in the opening screen for some time and listen to the main theme. When you come close enough, you get the imposing and the text saying that you learned a word. You don't know what this means, but it does feel really important. Then you face an enemy who will use some sort of magic to stagger you that you have never seen anywhere else. You might think that this is something special to these Draugrs, but nonetheless it's something that you also can't explain. Yet. And maybe some do recognize it from the trailer. But nonetheless it isn't clear what it all means. Fallout ends with finding the first non-hostile humans and sort of the first major faction. But I'll go into that later as well. End with you rampaging in a suit of power armor. Something everybody seems to hate, but for once I'm going to defend Fallout. Unlike in previous game where power armor is just another suit of armor for which you need training. Here it functions differently. Instead of just putting it on, you have to get in it. Unlike all other things in the game, these pieces wear down. They require fusion cores to be effective, and they need to be repaired and have a more complex crafting system. If you had to introduce all this after many hours of play, it would be really strange and easily break the flow of the game. And despite them giving you a full suit of power armor early on, they do one more clever thing. They don't give you fusion cores. You start with one that you wear down most of the way in the first fight. And then you have to be really conservative of this one core, including having to walk everywhere. Do stuff the normal way and you'll empty the core and then find you're stuck walking. Or you have to leave your armor behind. If you know where to go, you can get another core pretty soon, making a power armor playthrough possible from the start. But if you just start the game, power armor will probably not be a thing you use all the time, and especially not from the start for almost everyone. Was it a great idea to give players power armor from the start? No, but it was the best option. Was it a good idea to let you beat up a Deathclaw at the start? No, that was very stupid. It makes these vicious monsters way less threatening. It should be one of the game's last trump cards, or something you at some point when you're not ready can find, making for one hell of a memorable and unique encounter. Not a starting enemy. But not introducing power armor at the start would have been a big mistake too, as the game has to teach quite a bit about it. And more tutorial mid-game would also have been a really bad idea. You might think that it would make it more epic. After hours walking through the world trying to survive, you finally find this huge set of armor. This sounds good, it wouldn't work well. And for all the times that I attacked Fallout for having good ideas that don't work out, I like that this time they didn't go for that. Giving it early on is not a great idea, but it's better than the alternative. But let's talk about something these games do really different. Introductions to friendly towns and friendly people. Why they do it so differently is explained by the different worlds. Let's go over how they do it. Skyrim lets you be escorted to Riverwood by your companion. Once they are in town, they start walking instead of running. You hear conversations all around you. Nothing is really happening. You walk around and talk to people, and the biggest things you'll find are a love triangle, which can give you your first companion. You can get a little tutorial on the crafting system by the local smith, rumors that give points of interest all over the map, and the family of your companion wanting guards in town with the threat of a dragon. Fallout has you explore the town of Sanctuary. No people around, only your metal robot. And more unfriendly bugs. You can find some interesting things, and it gives the option to use the workbench and the workshop. You meet the first friendly humans after you save them from raiders, after which they will walk towards the safe town. Meaning there isn't a difference between how they walk when they are in a dangerous area and in town, where one will even patrol the area with gun drawn. You see the difference? In Skyrim, you are safe when you are in a town. People are just living their lives, mostly worrying about pretty normal things. While in Fallout, people try to survive. Towns can be safer than out in the waste, but you are never truly safe.
What brought you out here?
You might expect me to talk about the dialogue here, as this is the main place where it is introduced. But that is something for a future video. This video will be long enough already, and I really want to spend a proper amount of time on
A
dialogue.
month ago, there were 20 of us. Yesterday, there were 8.
Is this all that's left?
I do want to talk about an idea that Fallout seems to have had, but suddenly completely drops. In Vault, they give the idea that there are maybe no other humans alive anymore. Only the animal known for that they would survive nukes. When you go above ground, you'll find little in the way of vegetation. Your robot butler, made of metal, and more hued cockroaches. The robot talks of people still alive, but who hit him with sticks. When you walk out of town, you'll find the body of a man and a dog. That, by the way, never despawn, so will always make the road a pain in the eye. So there are still people around.
Okay then.
You walk down the road, and you'll find a friendly dog who will follow you. Better not be a cat person, I guess. You'll walk down the road more and find more huge bugs. And further down, people everywhere, in groups, working together. Yeah, it's a big step back from the world you left. But humans are still humans. Still talking, still using tools and guns. The entire idea of is civilization even still a thing is stopped here. This is a bit of a ramble, but what if instead of immediately showing men are still alive just over the bridge and then showing they are still pretty normal down the road instead, you find a bloody note next to the road saying help in crude letters in blood. You don't know who wrote it, whose blood it is, if they offer or need help. You are still left in the dark, but with some hope. You follow a trail of blood to a cave. In this cave you find feral men, or just to keep it simple, feral ghouls. So you wonder, is this it? Feral men who attack you once they see you? But then you find a dying man next to an empty med box. Before he dies, he manages to say one thing. East. You find something like a locket on him. There seem to be normal people still,
Giant roaches?
though if the art of language still exists is still a question, as you have still not truly spoken to anyone. You walk out of the cave and have the option to follow a road east. You see an old, half fallen apart building with what seems to be fire on the roof, but otherwise dark. But as you approach, suddenly many spotlights spring on and blind you, though you can hear the sound of what you think might be turrets. Someone shouts at you. "Who are you? And what are you doing here?" You can have a conversation where you can try to run away, be friendly, try to attack them, or perhaps show them the locket, so they might want to talk to you. Then you get introduced to the first town. with guards, shops, kids, and if at all possible, a demonstration of what will happen if somebody breaks the law. Anyone agree that this would be a way more powerful ending to the "does society even still exist" idea they seem to have been going for?
What happened here? Where is everyone?
Let's talk about that great danger they give you. Skyrim has a dragon. Fallout has a Deathclaw. And like I already said, I'm no fan of Fallout starting with a Deathclaw. Skyrim's dragon works a whole lot better. For one, it isn't the big endgame danger. It's just a normal dragon. And if you listen to the dialogue, he doesn't exactly sound the most threatening. I had forgotten what fine sport your mortals can provide. And you are brave. Balan Hokono. Your defeat brings me honor. Aren't really the words of the most threatening dragon in the lands. They also have a really cool line in there too. Thuri Dunhin Soko Sovangard. Which translates to, "My overlord will devour your soul in Sovangard." Not something any normal person would ever get, yet really enjoyable once you know what it means. 2. You don't fight him alone. You have a group of guards and Irilith with you, making this not a battle you can easily lose and with that become annoying. But also not giving you the idea that these things are easy as you have help. 3. It's important to the story. It's where you find out you are Dragonborn. You find out what that word you learned was for. It is a necessary point for the story. 4. You fight dragons throughout the entire game. They aren't as special as Deathclaws often are, and this is a good introduction on how they work without a too big risk of dying. The Deathclaw has no real justification. It's just a big monster for you to kill to feel tough and powerful. Nothing would change if it wasn't there. And I can't imagine it being a great hook if I take a look at how many people struggle with that bloody fight. One small thing that I have to mention is one poor decision in Fallout that doesn't really fit into a category. The choice of having 2 settlements within the first area. If you're like oh so many people, this will cost you a lot of time before you get back to the main quest. This is a decision I have a hard time understanding. Red Rocket is literally next to Sanctuary. Keep the building by all means, but why is it a settlement? Later in the game it is useless. It doesn't serve a particular point. And early in the game it can only hurt the experience. If somebody has a prediction on why this could be, please tell me, because I'm clueless here. In both games you'll also meet one of the major factions. For as much as Skyrim has factions, of course. I'm talking about the Companions and the Minutemen. Both are groups the player can join, but how you meet them couldn't be more different. You meet the Companions while they are beating a giant. You can drop in, deal some damage, and they'll be nice to you. Or what always happens to me, they kill it before you can get a hit in and get scoffed at. When in Whiterun, you'll hear many a tale of the heroic Companions. Of all the people in Skyrim, the Companions seem to hold the most respect, and you can join this powerful band of warriors. While the Minutemen have to be saved by you. One man and the group he tried to protect. That's all that's left. They seem to have some huge losses recently, but when you talk to other people, they'll say something like, "Oh yeah, the Minutemen. Thought they were dead." One is a relatively big power throughout the land. The other is as dead as you can get without being truly dead. I'll talk about the faction/guild progression on a later date, but right now it's interesting that they introduce them so differently. One is something big you can join in your quest to become big yourself. The other is weak, who you can help out and try to get back on their feet. This probably has a good reason for it though. this is often about maintaining what we have, while Fallout is about trying to rebuild and re-establish. And the first factions you meet mirror this perfectly. Well done, on both sides for once. Both of them also try to get you interested in the main story. You might say that that is something the tutorial should do, and you are correct. Problem is, the tutorial takes less than an hour and these are bloody long games. If they interest you in something for less than an hour and then give you hundreds of hours of other things you can do, the main quest would get lost. So I think that keeping some more focus on the main quest in the first couple hours is a good idea. So how do they do it? In Skyrim, when you step into the world, one of the first things you'll see is once more Alduin. When you walk into town, one of the first things you'll hear is somebody talking about a dragon. You get sent on your way because of the threat of a dragon attack against a town with no guards. You get sent into the dungeon for something that holds information on dragons. And you get to fight your first dragon. In Fallout, your robot butler starts talking about your son. As do the survivors of the raider attack on a couple of occasions. You get sent on your way to Diamond City because that will be the place where you can get some more information on where your son is. Let me start off with saying that Skyrim has this part a lot easier. It's easier to show dragons than it is to show the lack of a son. Though his bed does a really good job of it. And it is just easier to get people interested in mythical dragons than it is to get interested in a son you had little time to grow attached to. So after saying that it's easier for Skyrim, I must say that Skyrim does a better job of it. Show a dragon wreck the place. Keep reminding you it was a thing. Tell you that dragons aren't supposed to fly around. Let you fight one of who you absorb something. Of course people are going to be interested. Fallout can't show you something, as it is the lack of something that is the problem, but has to fully rely on talking about it. Which means that conversations have to go towards a topic. And unlike talking about something special like dragons, this is harder to make sound natural. The first talk with Codsworth is really bad for this, especially if you replay it. It might be one of the weakest points of dialogue in the game, for which it is sad that it comes in the first hour. The problem I have here is that I don't really know how they could have done it better. If you remember the tutorial episode, you know that I already didn't like the start-stop intro, so giving us even more time would have annoyed me at least even more, not helping with getting attached. Maybe letting Sean do more would have helped, but that would have been a lot of work for only a very short part of the game. Making him a kid wouldn't have worked for the story, and making him able to do things like crawl would have been useless to the rest of the game. I fear it's just a weakness of the stolen baby story in a game like this. The only way I could maybe see them improve this slightly is if the player started these conversations instead of the other person talking. The player does have a good reason for bringing it up, unlike all the other characters. Let's also take a quick look at the point where the game really sets you loose. The point where people's stories really start to deviate. How they do it is rather similar. Give the player an objective that's further away and let them lose track of it. To me, the fun thing is how what they say and the message of what they say seem to be so reversed. In Skyrim the text is,
"You'd better get up to High Hrothgar immediately. There's no refusing the summons of the Greybeards. It's a tremendous honor."
and
No matter. Go to High Hrothgar. Learn what the Greybeards can teach you.
the text says urgent, but the laid-back way of saying it, people seem to not see it so urgent. You are going to meet some old men on top of a mountain. Not exactly something you need to hurry up for. And with that, not something people worry about not doing quickly. Fallout on the other hand says,
And even I don't need the sight to tell you where you should start looking. The great green jewel of the Commonwealth, Diamond City, the biggest settlement around.
No real hurry in how Mama Murphy says it. But how your character talks, and with the goal being finding your kidnapped son, instead of meet some old man who summoned you, not hurrying, getting distracted, something I remind you the game encourages here, makes a lot of people feel bad. You are supposed to be a parent who is looking almost frantically for your lost son. Yet the game wants you to wander off, go explore, get lost. All that fun Bethesda open world stuff. A case of ludonarrative dissonance. The story of how you are in a rush to find your child, yet with gameplay that promotes exploration. But now I stop with looking at how the game sets you free and more the main story. And for once I can at least also complain that Skyrim didn't do this perfectly. The text does say you should hurry, not get distracted, and many parts of the game are like this. But where the dialogue might say hurry, the message for most is take your time. But once again, this is main story, not how they set you off. How they set you off is almost the same. Give you a goal far away, give you some time to pick up side quests in other places, and let you get lost. Interesting how much closer Skyrim's goal is. But then again, distance is in no way the same as travel time. But I think I've talked for long enough now. Guess people have more to do than listen to one man overthinking a couple of hours of gameplay. So, do tell me what you want me to look at next. Take a close look at the main quest, a more in-depth look into the factions and guilds. Look at cities and settlements. Look more at the mechanics and how they affect the game. Or a topic of your own. Let me know. I already have the topic of these games as role-playing games, but I want to go over some other things first so I can really focus that episode. But please, leave any thoughts, ideas, rambles or hate mail in the comments. I'll be sure to read them all. This has been Phoenix, saying farewell. And when all is said and done, there are only 2 quotes left to be said. War. War never changes. Wars, Rada!